God damn it, finally. Okay. 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 Sorry guys.
And it's guided. So, hello, Casper. Don't worry.
Oh.
Nice to have you.
Oh.
So, we will start now. We'll ring a bell. And 10 minutes after the first bell is rung, the second one will rung, and that will mark the end of our session of meditation. There. I will guide everything, so if you've never meditated before, don't worry about it. All right, so let's start. Especially if you came here running at the last minute, I would invite you to take 3 deep breaths right now. Settle in. All right, so let us start by the body. Typically in meditation, we sit cross-legged. If you're on a chair, that's fine. You could be on the floor, you could be kneeling also. What's really important is that your back is well aligned with your neck. A little checkup this right away, so that no tension is created. It's not really creating for you. You meditate. And also have your arms relaxed, laying comfortably on your laps. Don't clench your teeth. You can close your eyes, but usually meditation practice with your eyes slightly open, about 25% of your eyes open. And the legs should just provide a good that. So let's start by bringing our attention to the tip of our head and relaxing the scalp, the muscles of our mouth and cranium. Bring the attention there like it's scanning your body. Relaxing the scalp and then the eyebrows. Spend a lot of time in front of the screen. Pay special attention to the eyelids, the upper cheek, around the eye. With the headset also sometimes holds a little bit, so relax the area behind your ears. If you're wearing glasses also, to the side and the back of your head are relaxed. Cheeks, lips. If you don't know what to do with your tongue, just let it rest in the upper body. Have a little bit of air through your lips and warm. And then relax upper part of your neck. Down. Tension again. Detect. And how do you release tension? Well, you can just imagine that zone there where the muscle is contracted. You can just imagine it letting go. You will be letting go as well. Relax your shoulders, upper back. way your arms are laying should allow for a soft chest, no tension in chest. Your belly, lower back as well. You can scan your spine from up to down, make sure no tension exists all over the spine. Then around the waistline. Heavy lower limb, then arm, back, legs, just where they are. Gently open your hands and relax your fingers. And go down there. Then once you're sitting there, mobilize, you may start focusing your attention on the breath. So the idea is not to breathe deeper nor to breathe longer, but simply to notice that since this is happening all the time unconsciously, this is something that we use as an anchor for attention. And the idea there is that we will notice what's going on in our mind, our heart, and in our body. We'll pay attention to the things that we don't pay attention during our daily life. We want to see what it is that we're thinking about, what it is that we are feeling home. There is chronic pain somewhere in our body, you might discover that. And as we do discover those manifestations, those thoughts that arise, no pain, you just bring the mind back to the breath. Bring the mind back to the breath constantly. And you try to keep your mind. You just breathe softly. If you think, label it thinking, come back to the breath. Feeling, itching. Let's take one more deep breath and just keep the mind anchored to it. Allow yourself to enter a deeper meditative state with each breath. Every time you exhale, relaxation, sure, and heavy. successful meditation, trigger your alpha brain, start daydreaming, hearing all kinds of images. That you notice that happening, bring the mind to your bed. Right, did you guys manage to relax a little bit?
Yes.
Yep.
Alright, so I have a special place that I'm cutting today for the reading, Mar. Were you prepared for it, or should I work with you?
I can read it, I have it before me. I didn't prepare, but I think I will be fine.
Actually, where's Julia? Okay, I couldn't see her. Yeah, so if you want to read her, basically it's the way of practical attainment, the part search for truth. It's just that we will stop after number 5, because it's quite a long reading. So,
Okay, that's great.
we'll read until once there was a king, that's number 6. So we don't stop it.
Okay, then we do that.
Alright, awesome.
The way of practical attainment, search for truth. In the search for truth there are certain questions that are unimportant. Of what material is the universe constructed? Is the universe eternal? Are there limits or not to the universe? In what way is the human society put together? What is the ideal form of organization for human society? If a man were to postpone his searching and practicing for enlightenment until such questions were solved, he would die before he found the path. Suppose a man were pierced by a poisoned arrow, and his relatives and friends got together to call a surgeon to have the arrow pulled out and the wound treated. If the wounded man objects, saying, "Wait a little before you pull it out. I want to know who shot this arrow. Was it a man or a woman? Was it someone of noble birth, or was it a peasant? What was the bow made of? Was it a big bow, or was it a small bow that shot the arrow? Was it made out of wood or bamboo? Was the bowstring made of? Was it made of fiber or of gut? Was the arrow made of rattan or of reed? What feathers were used before you extract the arrow? I want to know all about these things. Then what will happen? Before all this information can be secured, no doubt the poison will have time to circulate all through the system, and the man may die. But first duty is to remove the arrow and prevent its poison from spreading. When a fiery passion is endangering the world, the composition of the universe matters little. What is the ideal form for the human community is not so important to deal with. The question of whether the universe has limits or is eternal can wait until someone is found to extinguish the fires of birth, old age, sickness and death, in the presence of misery, sorrow, suffering and agony. One should first search for a way to solve these problems and devote oneself to practice of that way. The Buddha's teaching contains what is important to know and what is unimportant. That is, it teaches people what they must learn, what they should learn, remove what they should remove. Train for what they should become enlightened about. Therefore, people should first discern what is the most important, what problems should be solved first, and what is the most pressing issue for them. To do all this, they must first undertake to train their minds. That is, they must first seek mind control. Suppose a man goes to the forest to get some of the pit that grows in the center of a tree and returns with a burden of branches and leaves, thinking that he has secured what he went after. Would he not be foolish if he is satisfied with the bark, wood for the pit which he was after? But that is what many people are doing. A person seeks a path that will lead him away from birth, old age, sickness and death, or from misery, sorrow, suffering and agony, and yet he follows the path a little way. Noticing some little advance and immediately becomes proud and conceit and domineering. He is like the man who sought pitch and went away satisfied with a burden of branches and leaves. Another man, becoming satisfied with the progress he has made by little effort, relaxes his effort and becomes proud and conceit. He is carrying away only a load of branches instead of the pitch he was seeking. Still, another man, finding that his mind is becoming calmer and his thoughts clearer, he too relaxes his effort and becomes proud and conceit. He has a burden of bark instead of the pit he was looking for. Then again, another man becomes proud and conceit because he notices that he has gained a measure of intuitive insight. He has a load of woody fiber of the tree instead of the pit. All these seekers, who become easily satisfied by their inefficient effort and become proud and overbearing, relax their efforts and easily fall into idleness. All these people will be inevitable face suffering again. Those who seek the true path to enlightenment must not expect any offer of respect, honor or devotion, and further they must not aim with a slight effort and a trifling advance in calmness or knowledge or insight. First of all, one should clearly in mind the basic and essential nature of this world of life and death. The world has no substance of its own. It is simply a vast concordance of causes and conditions that have had their origin, solely and exclusively, in the activities of the mind that has been stimulated by ignorance, false imaginations, desires and infatuations. It's not something external about which the mind has false conceptions. It has no substance whatever. It has come into appearance by the processes of the mind itself, manifestation its own delusions. It is founded and built up out of desires of the mind, out of its sufferings, struggles, incidental to the pain caused by its own greed. Anger and foolishness Men who seek the way of enlightenment should be ready to fight such a mind to attain their goal. Oh my mind, why do you, however, so restlessly over the changing circumstances of life? Why do you make me so confused and restless? Why do you urge me to collect so many things? You are like a plough that breaks in pieces before the beginning to plough. You are like a rudder that is dismantled just as you're venturing out on the sea of life and death. Of what use are many rebirths if we do not make use of this life? Oh my mind, once you caused me to be born as a king, and then you caused me to be born as an outcast and to beg for my food. Sometimes you cause me to be born in heavenly mansions of gods and dwell in luxury and ecstasy. Then you plunge me into flames of hell. Oh my foolish, foolish mind. Thus you have led me along different paths and I have been obedient to you and docile. But now that I have heard the Buddha's teaching, do not disturb me anymore or cause me further suffering, but let us seek enlightenment together, humble and patiently. Oh my mind, if I could only learn that everything is non-substantial and transitory. If you could only learn not to grasp after things, not to covet things, not to give way to greed, anger and foolishness, then we might journey in quietness. Then, by severing the bond of desires with the sword of wisdom, being undisturbed by chasing circumstances, advantage or disadvantage, good or bad, loss or gain, praise or abuse, we might dwell in peace. Oh my dear mind, it was you who first awakened faith in us. It was you who suggested our seeking enlightenment. Why do you give way so easily to greed, love of comfort and pleasant excitement again? Oh my mind, why do you rush hither and thither with no defined purpose? Let us cross this wild sea of delusion. Hitherto I have acted as you wished, but now you must act as I wish. Together we will follow the Buddha's teaching. Oh my dear mind, these mountains, rivers and seas are changeable and pain-producing. Where in this world of delusions shall we seek quietness? Let us follow the Buddha's teaching and cross over the utter shore of enlightenment. Thus, those who really seek the path to enlightenment dictate terms to their mind. Then they proceed with strong determination, even though they are abused by some and scorned by others. They go forward and undisturbed. They do not become angry if they are beaten by fists, or hit by stones, or gashed by swords. Even if enemies cut their head from the body, the mind must not be disturbed. If they let their mind become darkened by the things they suffer, they are not following the teaching of Buddha, and they must be determined, no matter what happens to them, to remain steadfast, unmovable, ever radiating thoughts of compassion and goodwill. Let abuse come, let misfortune come, and yet one should resolve to remain unmoved and tranquil in mind. Fill it with Buddha's teaching. For the sake of attaining enlightenment, one should try to accomplish the impossible, and one should endure the unendurable. One must give what he has to the less of it. If he has told that to gain enlightenment he must limit his food to a single grain of rice a day, he will only eat that. If the path to enlightenment leads him through the fires, he will go forward. but one must not do these things for any ulterior purpose. One should do them because it is a wise thing, the right thing to do. One should do them out of spirit of compassion, as a mother does things for her little child, for a sick child with no thoughts of her own strength or comfort. That was it.
Yeah, that's a big. Thank you. Right. So before I start with the commentary, I was curious, is there a part of this that struck a chord with you? Is it something that you found curious or wanted to comment on?
What?
Someone want to go
Sorry,
first?
I didn't understand the question.
I think you're just asking for comments, if you got something to say about that.
I want to ask which chapter is this, because I want to read it again. Like, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, it's from page 150 of the Teaching of Buddha that you can get.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I was gonna... Yeah, that's right. So my grandmother is a very devoted Christian, and oftentimes when I have a conversation with her, like say when I'm sick or something, and I would ask her, "Oh, what would be a good remedy for this to help me heal up?" Oftentimes she would just say, just pray a little and put your faith into God, and everything will turn out okay. And this is the kind of reasoning that we saw like 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, when all of Christianity was silencing the fields of science because they were being threatened that science would overthrow Christianity as a whole. And I can't help but find that same sort of reasoning in this as well, what we just read.
Yeah, and I will explain where the wisdom of that resides briefly.
Sure.
When you are desperately looking for a solution to heal or to fix a problem, you are in a state of stress and anxiety. And the way that you are wired as a human being is that when you are stressed, you are basically preparing to defend. You're preparing to run faster away from the lion, preparing to function without food and without water, and so your entire body switches into overdrive. But the price of that is that it turns off your immune system and it turns off your healing system. So for a little while you become a little bit superhuman, being able maybe to work 24 hours in a row so that you can save your life. But you can very well catch a cold at the end of that, and I'm sure many of you have had that experience, that they were extremely tired or they had abused their body in a way, and then they ended up with some, bad feeling or some weakness or cold or flu or whatever. And that's the reason why. It's because your system is shutting off your immune system defense. Now, what if you replace that with peace? What if you replace that with faith? Because that's what blind faith in some traditions bring. You're basically surrendering to life and putting your destiny in the life of a greater power. But what it happens, and you experience exactly the same thing when you go to the hospital and you put your health in the hands of a doctor. All of a sudden you feel like, okay, somebody's handling that, so I don't have to worry about it. The most that can be done will be done here. Right? That's kind of how they think about it. But the cool thing is that when you start there, then anxiety goes, then stress goes away, and so your defenses kick back in, your immune system kicks back in, and your body starts doing what it does best, healing itself and functioning well. Voltaire in the 1600s, there's a real cool quote that I like about him. He was saying that the medicine is what you do to the patient to distract him while nature does its own business. And I believe that a lot of it is that, like, religion could be used to distract you and calm you, peace you out, while nature and your body repairs. Does that make a bit of sense to you, Defa?
Like I said, it answers one question but raises two. You know? But I see the point that you're trying to get across. Yeah, maybe we can talk later about this then.
Okay, okay. So I call that the science of miracle. You know, people that recover from cancer inexplicably, and people that they had an ailment for a long while, and then they meet a contemporary saint, and they're cured. I do believe that it does come from that surrender, and that maybe they were simply in the way of their own health before, but when they step aside, they start recovering. And maybe there's a little bit more at play there. There are some unexplained phenomena, but if I look at just the science, this is what I could say. All right, so one thing that I think is a surprising fact about Buddhism, and that's kind of how the lecture started today, is that it does not speak about creation. It has no genesis. It doesn't try to say how life came to be. And Buddhism does not challenge, but rather embraces science in that respect. That, for example, the Dalai Lama has declared many times that if at some point religion and science were in contradiction, science should prevail, just because it has better ways to measure and verify based on many observers, peer-reviewed literature. So if you have a great Big Bang theory or multiverse theory, and that's the flavor of the day, astrophysics, well, go with that. No need to try to explain the universe with Buddhism. It's not its focus. In the same way, it does not challenge the social order. It does not tell you, oh, we should live in a communist society. We should be socialists, or we should be capitalists, or whatever system you choose. Rather, it works at improving humanity, one person at a time, through what it considers to be important. And what Buddhism considers to be important is in fact the cessation of suffering, which is the climax of the Four Noble Truths that were communicated by Buddha. There is a way to stop suffering in this life, and I have found the recipe. That's what Buddha said when he woke up. Right? And so if you're concerned with the cessation of suffering of the individual, you might also be concerned with the fact that it could spread, so you don't want that to spread further. And so that's why in the text that we're saying, if the house is on fire, or if you've been shot by an arrow, before you ask all of these questions, make sure the poison does not spread. Therefore, all the pointers that are given in Buddhism are aligned with that mission. Everything that is said in Buddhism is about stopping us from suffering. And it's interesting that we often confuse the absence of suffering and happiness with ideology. We tend to build ideal worlds in our head, our minds. But in fact, extreme ideology has little to do with happiness, and it can be dangerous. For example, if you're stuck in that utopia that you have constructed, it may make you see every fault in the world that is there, and you may think that they are now unacceptable. You may become hypercritical, anxious, hooked on perfectionism. You might want everything to be perfect, or you might want everything to go your way according to your ideology. And I believe that this is how you get crusades or Nazis and many other cults and religious or righteous movements that are, they sit in a little room somewhere, and then they're convinced they have figured it out. After that, they get out and they try to impose it on them, try to convert people. Happiness has a lot to do with how you relate to yourself, how you relate with your body, thoughts, your emotions, with the people around you and your environment. So that's the focus of Buddhism, and that's what I think was being explained there. So it's not that it says do not concern yourself with explaining creation or science. It just says it's not our job to teach you about what you're welcome to pursue your own studies and interests. And that's what makes it compatible with so many belief systems. In the history of the Sangha, we've had people that practice Islam, we've had Christians that came and sat for many sessions with us. We've had atheist people. So that's how Buddhists are. They come from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of ideologies, and basically they just use Buddhism to do whatever it is that they like in a little bit better, happier. So the story about the man that was shot by an arrow, I guess, is just a call to focus on the essential. It means that you should prioritize your well-being, knowing that you can work on whatever you need. And whenever the words mind control appear in this book, I like to do a reminder that mind monitoring is probably a better practice and a better translation. The idea is that the mind needs to be free, so we really don't want to make it conform to our expectations. In that context, control is excessive. But if you monitor something, let's say you monitor a little bird that comes to visit your backyard every day. Well, if it runs out of seeds, you might pick up more seeds and feed the bird, or you might give it some new water. So it's not about having the bird do what you want, it's about making sure that the little bird is growing appropriately. So in the same way, you should monitor your mind, and when you notice that something erratic is happening, then the correction will arise naturally. Nobody wants to fall into a depressive or an anxious spiral. And so when you notice yourself falling in it, because you became so good at watching your mind, at monitoring your mind, and if once you know how to snap out of it, well, you will just do it naturally. There's no point in staying there. It's painful. So that's what mind control is about in Buddhism, and unfortunately there are many bad translations. So stick with mind monitoring if possible. In the second part, we had a man looking for pith, and before he could look for pith, if that man was me, he had to look it up on the internet because I didn't know what pith was. And it turns out that it's a kind of tar or sap that you, for example, you could collect pine sap, and it becomes fuel for the fire. So in the lecture they were making a bunch of comparisons saying that although bark is good and wood is good, branches are great, they can all help you build a fire. Nothing will fuel the fire like pith would. And so I guess they were saying that a lot of people settle for less, but as a result they might have a less successful fire, or a fire that's not warming. But the lessons I feel were interesting in there is that if you're on the path, well, if I am on the path, I think I have understood it all, and I start splitting the world between those that know and those that do not, well, I am mistaken. Also, if I start thinking that I am better than others, I am mistaken. If I believe I am so wise or so intelligent that I cannot relate with others easily anymore, I am probably mistaken as well. So if any of these apply to us, in fact, although we might feel better with the tools that we are getting from the path, it's just a matter of time before we become dissatisfied with our lives again. Because in these observations of superiority, in those feelings of superiority, there's a feeling of duality. There's a feeling of one and other. And as long as duality exists, we are competing. And there will come a time when I will lose that competition and I will be competitive. So the way to go with this is really to embrace oneness and let go of competition altogether. Then we can start to dance. Imagine if you were trying to dance with a partner and you were trying to dance better than your partner, or your partner was trying to dance better than you. What would happen? Would this be a beautiful dance? would be chaos, right? Would be stepping on a lot of toes, I guess, maybe fall together. So that's what dancing with the universe is also about. We have to pay attention and move with the rhythm and not try to outwit and outsmart and outdo others. And then came this great lesson from Buddhism that's called the theory of mind only, where they say that the world, all of it, manifests into our mind. And so, is there anybody here that would doubt that you experience the world through your mind? Isn't it the only way for the world to appear to us? Even if we say, no, I can touch the world, I can feel the world through my senses, well, that information is processed by the brain. It's the brain that's doing the feeling in the end. It's the mind that's doing the recognition of the environment. So when you take it from that perspective, the entire universe is actually in our mind. So we're invited through today's lecture to realize that oneness and to understand that we can decide how we want to experience that reality that is in our and there was this lecture, well, not lecture, but there was I guess I would qualify it as a supplication that started with, oh, my mind. And I find it very interesting that we are addressing the mind instead of blaming ourselves as supplication. I feel it makes it somewhat more workable. So it's a few paragraphs. I think I'd like to read it again together and see how we relate in daily life. There is some symbolism there that I can unpack because it refers to reincarnation that I feel people oftentimes do literally. So it started with, oh my mind, why do you hover so restlessly over the changing circumstances of my life? Why do you make me so confused and restless? Why do you urge me to collect so many things? You are like a plow that breaks in pieces before beginning to plow. You are like a rudder that is dismantled just as you are venturing out on the sea of life and death. Of what use are many rebirths if we do not make good use of this life? So basically here, Protagonist is complaining that my mind is not doing exactly what I want. I'm trying, let's say I want to solve a math problem, but I cannot concentrate. Or I want to realize my dream, but I get discouraged. Or I really want to get out, but I'm depressed and I cannot find the energy. I think we can all find an experience within ourselves where when our mind did not do exactly what we want. And isn't it supposed to be our number one ally? In fact, when we refer to the mind in the West, we say I. We say I want, I desire, I am depressed, I am confused. And what is beautiful here is that we say the mind is depressed, the mind is unusable. It's liberating because all of a sudden we're not broken anymore. It's just that piece of us that needs some fixing. And carries on like, oh my mind, once you caused me to be born as a king, and then you caused me to be born as an outcast and to beg for my food. Sometimes you caused me to be born in heavenly mansions of the god to dwell in luxury next to me. Then you plunge me into the flames of hell. That's one of those references about reincarnation, I think, isn't it? Once you caused me to be born as a king. What is that? Do you ever feel like a king or a queen? Like you're on top of the world, like you had a very good day, or everybody was doing what you wanted, and you felt you were really having your way. Isn't that when we feel like kings and queens? And but then there's also that part where we feel like, oh, Maybe we've had that very bad day at work where we've been put on the side or ridiculed, or you know, there was this group that kicked us out and it felt like we were being sued. And in that, when you're feeling like this, and if you're at work, for example, you might feel like you're there begging for your food, that you're not really appreciated, but you're there because you have. And so we can all be reborn, not in different lives, but in different moments of our lives, as kings and beggars. And about the heavenly mansions of the gods and to dwell in luxury and ecstasy. What about when we travel and you get into a 4-star, 5-star hotel and you're on that luxury yacht and you are clearly using all kinds of installations and possessions that you could not afford? Then you are there. And what about the flames of hell? Well, isn't depression or anxiety help? Self-hatred, suicidal thoughts, so destructive behaviors in general. That's all hell, and that's hell on earth. You don't need to be waiting to be damned to experience that. It's available all the time, and a lot of us spend quite a good deal of time there, just because we don't know how to get out. And then we have, oh, my foolish, foolish mind. Thus ye have led me along different paths, and I have been obedient to you. Those times. But now that I have heard the Buddhist teaching, do not disturb me anymore or cause me further suffering, but let us seek enlightenment together. So that's, I would say, in Buddhism, that would be called renunciation. It's when you start realizing that the suffering that you experience, you are doing to yourself. Suffering that you experience comes from the way you relate. And the big word, relationship with a capital R. The way you relate to yourself, your environment, objects, animals, everything. And so when you start realizing that this is where it hurts, then you start wanting to change. But now your mind, unfortunately, has all these old ingrained habits. You've been living a certain ways for decades, maybe, and it's not easy to change those habits. So he's saying, please, my mind, work with me. Oh, my mind, if you could only learn that everything is non-substantial and transitory. If you could only learn not to grasp after things, not to covet, not to give way to greed, anger, and foolishness, then we might journey in quiet. Then, by severing the bond of desires with the sword of wisdom, being undisturbed by changing circumstances, advantage or disadvantage, good or bad, loss or gain, grace or abuse, we have peace. So here's the thing. Desire really only comes from dissatisfaction. It's just when I believe that life is perfect, that I want to change it, that I want things to add to it, to fix it. And if I'm not able to be happy in this moment, how will I be happy in the next? If I cannot be happy today, how will I be happy next week or next year? I really doubt that it's just changing my car or my home or my apartment or my lover or whatever that will provide this solution. It's much more of an attitude. So we're further in our renunciation and in our awakening here. We're saying, I recognize now that this desire is leading me nowhere. It's leading me to more desire. And the more desire, the more things I acquire that don't do it, the more frustrated and depressed I feel. I'm bitter now. I'm bitter now with my life. I've been trying for 50 years to crack the code and be happy, but nothing's working. Why is it that no amount of money in my bank account, no amount of wives, no amount of pleasures will fix it? And you hear that from Hollywood stars, very rich people, right? That doesn't matter how much they have. They still go depressed, they still do drugs, they still end up in jail, don't they? It's a good illustration that happiness cannot be external. Oh, my dear mind, it was you who first awakened faith in us. It was you who suggested our seeking advice. Why do you give way so easily? Greed, love, comfort, pleasant items. And that is a funny one, because and it's so difficult. That's a very difficult part of Buddhism, because you come in contact with the teachings intellectually with your mind. You read your first Buddhist teaching, or you hear about it and you process it with your mind. And in the beginning, your mind feels curiosity. You think, oh, that seems interesting. Yeah, I resonate with that. But then you try to apply it, and there's something isn't completed there. No matter how much information you're gonna acquire, you just don't go through. And the reason for it is that as the ego realizes that it needs to eclipse itself, that it needs to get out of the driver's seat, or a greater enlightenment, greater wisdom take place, as the ego sees that, it starts to manipulate our mind and our thoughts. And it starts to try and survive. It fights back. It says, yeah, all right, if you're going to pursue that enlightenment thing, I'm going to have to take a back seat, and I don't like that. What about all of those battles that we were leading? You will lose if I'm not there anymore. You see, so the ego starts lying to you like this. A bit like we could think, there's no way that I'm going to prevail.
I'm here to kill everyone.
Really?
You
or you could have a seat. Or you could have a seat with us and enjoy yourself.
You will all die.
Alright. We will indeed, and so will you. Every second of every day. We die a little bit, my friends. Come sit with us, or go have fun.
Hello.
Alright. So the mind there starts. Alright. Do you want to participate, or should we
I need
reschedule?
a new contract.
Okay. So I'll talk to you later, friend. Okay. Sorry. Just out of respect for all of you. I don't mind trolls, but I don't want to lose an hour with it either. Life is precious, isn't it? Yes, so as I said, ego starts panicking, starts fighting back, and that can stall our progression on the path. Because all of a sudden the learning and the transformation stops as well. So we have to be very gentle at this point, and there are relapses. It's just like an addiction. We are addicted to our habits. We are addicted to our battles. We are addicted to our life projects. And so if we are moving into a path of middle way and into a path of letting go, chances are that we might go clubbing once in a while still, or that we might indulge some of our guilty pleasures a few times, and that's okay. Because once the egg has started to crack, the chick will emerge sooner or later. You can go at your own speed there, but just realize that this is happening. And then, oh my mind, why do you rush hither and thither with no definite purpose? Let us cross this wild sea of delusion. Hitherto I have acted as you wished, but now you must act as I wish, and together we will follow the Buddhist teaching. So, it's saying basically we are losing life here. Let's be a little bit more efficient, and that's where the cutting up. And, oh my dear mind, these mountains, rivers, and seas are changeable and pain-producing. Where in this world of delusion shall we seek quiet? let us follow the Buddhist teaching and cross over to the other shore of it. So that's a fruition stage where you have gotten to know your mind enough and its traps that you start seeing that the only peace you will find is in one of the refuge, which is in Buddhism, the Buddha Dharma Sangha. So the Buddha is the Buddha within, your own enlightened nature, your own potential for waking up and becoming wiser. The Dharma is the teaching themselves. So if you have not found that inner peace, you can go and read a bit of the teaching and it will make you think and it will bring some comfort. And the Sangha, well, that's here. That's the reason this Sangha exists, is that week after week, as life and our mind and our emotions are taking us in all kinds of direction, we have this place where we can resource ourselves. We can come and sit together, take a breather, and rethink our purpose and rethink our focus a little bit. So it keeps us on track. A meditation practice that is integrated with our daily life, it's a daily steady practice, is the optimal solution. But meanwhile, if you can stick with any of the three jewels, or all of them, it will help you. Alright, so this was the end of that supplication, I guess. Did you guys relate a little bit to this? Could you recognize yourself in some of it? You see that your mind's playing tricks on you sometimes?
Yes. Always.
Always, yeah, that's good. So, the reading today concludes by saying that those who seek enlightenment dictate terms to their mind, that they are not subjected by it. They rule over it. It goes back to say that we can decide how we want to experience reality. But there is a little bit more to it. The text spoke of enduring the unendurable, and of doing what is necessary to gain greater wisdom, including eating a single grain of rice for a while. There is some sort of quiet strength and dignity in that process of becoming unshakable in your pursuit. You become kind of noble and behave a bit like a king or a queen, living on your own terms. And if your heart is filled with loving kindness, then that king or queen can become a gentle giant that accomplishes incredible things for humanity. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you get your mind, if you tame your mind, if you learn to live it with your mind and use it well, instead of having it using you, and use it to really change some of this world for the better. This is what the discipline of enlightenment is all about. So next time we can read the other half of this chapter. Now I would like to hear from you. Any commentaries or personal experiences that you would like to share that relate or do not relate to this?
I guess I got one. Especially what you said there at the end, where your mind, your ego is trying to play tricks on you to make you fall in line, I guess. Like, for example, one that you said where, "Oh my mind, why do you rush so fast towards no purpose?" Right? That was one that's definitely very obvious in today, especially. Like during the pandemic, I feel like a lot of my friends are kind of brought down, or some even depressed by the fact that they wasted a whole year, and now it's too late for them to do something. Like I know some people say that, "Oh well, I couldn't find a partner for this last year, therefore I'll never find one." Or in my personal experience, I know that's I've had a struggle of like finding or of pushing myself to try and prepare, looking for a new job. So now my mind's saying, "Oh, if I don't do it like right this very moment, like I'm that's it. I'm never gonna be able to find another job, and I'm just gonna be stuck in the position where I am now. But I guess we know that that's just not true. And a lot of these lessons that you said where your ego is trying to trap you. To me it's amazing that these are really, really old teachings that sort of just started popping up and being written down in the field of psychology, being officially written down and taught in the field of psychology, but it's been around for thousands of years now in Buddhism. That's pretty cool.
Yes, it's actually when Shoshin Trungpa, which is I consider him my root master, came to America to spread Tibetan Buddhism. He was the first to open a monastery in America. He adopted our culture and he started dressing with ties and wearing suits, and one thing that he immediately did is he connected with Western psychology because he saw that this was the scientific arm of our society that would get it, and that would kind of merge with these old teachings. So I consider it like ancient psychology personally. And you did give many great examples. We're talking about the procrastination of getting a job but not looking for it necessarily, and that's really how we indulge. That's from Freud also. He rediscovered that very much later. That we are moved by pulsions of pleasure in life. The basic mechanics of almost all of us is that we experience pain and suffering during an event or during our childhood or a sustained period of time. And once that's over, we want to have a break from it. So you can reward yourself with ice cream, with drugs, with sexual pleasure, with all kinds of behaviors that are very easy because you don't want to suffer anymore. So you reward you start desiring pleasure. And so Buddhism says that, well, it's okay, you're desiring pleasure and you're giving it to you, but it didn't really solve the source of your suffering, did it? There was something missed. And when we start seeing that procrastination, for example, is really the fear of suffering. We've suffered before, and now we're afraid that we'll suffer again. We're afraid it's not going to work. It's not going to be done well. It's not going to be done in time. People are not going to be happy with it. The pay is not going to be good. Whatever lie it is that we tell ourselves and believe is what we start focusing on. And instead the ego says, okay, let's not go that way. It's all crap. Let me watch another Netflix episode instead. And I'll be great, Let me binge watch actually 53 episodes of my favorite show, and I don't have to talk or think about finding a job for the next 48 hours. And that's what we do. We do it with cleaning the floors, doing our homeworks, finding a job, anything that requires effort we tend to interpret, and this crazy mind kicks in and says, don't do that, it's gonna be so terrible, you're gonna die for a job. And so we find something else that's more pleasurable. Yeah, there's a lot of that in this application. It's real pain when you have it incredibly clear that you are the one doing that yourself. So the teachings can help a lot, give a greater conscience of this. Start solving, maybe start operating differently. Hello there. Want to have a seat with us? That's all. No disrespect intended. All right, so you moved out. How about you guys? Anybody else wants to share a little story or commentary?
I mean, I personally really like the part in which I could accept that there are things that don't go well with my mind, but I am not my mind. That's some teaching that it's been difficult for me to accept, and we just talked about it right now. Like, your mind can be having these sort of thoughts or these sort of obsessions or this pursuit for pleasure, but that doesn't mean it's you. You are something else. And I found that relieving, freeing.
Yes, and I know you a little bit, Rico, and I know that you work in a field that is made of ideas. And when you speak with people, you can often easily see what they identify with. Some of us, we identify with ideas. We like to speak about concept and knowledge and the technical stuff. We may enjoy having a long chat about stuff. And since we like it, we kind of want to be that. So we identify with our knowledge. It would be like, it's like, I am not Rico, I am a book about this, right? That's kind of how you start thinking about the stuff and you collect that knowledge and those, as if they were things. It's a form of materialism, which is something that's kind of abstract. But when you speak to other people, you will see that they relate to feelings. That's what they will tell you about them. You won't know where they work, but they will tell you, I feel sad, or I feel happy, or this is the most beautiful day of my life, or this is a hard day. And then you can see that what they consider things are their emotions, and that's what they identify with. And so they cannot say, okay, today my emotions were difficult to manage. That's not how they felt. They felt that today I was a wreck. Today I was unworthy. Today I was good and I was joyous. You see the difference? I'm not talking about dissociating there. Emotions are meant to be felt and thoughts are meant to be thought, but they're not you. They're not the whole of you. There are so many more things. You have a body as well. And you see, you have sometimes bodybuilders. One phrase I often hear is that my body is my work of art. It's my creation. I am a work of art. And they look at themselves a lot in the mirror, and they become very conscious of how they present themselves, and they start doing those pauses in non-gym settings where they really want you to see that biceps or that elbow or that, and so they become a body, and that's what they identify with, and go and criticize that body just for fun. Then you will make them miserable, because that's where their entire sense of self-worth is. So I believe that today's society is heavily biased toward the intellectual thing. A lot of us are what we think we are, our opinion, our difference, our individuality, and we live in the knowledge world, digital world. And so where thoughts are not only glorified, they're given value. Content has incredible value right now in our society. So honestly, I think we're all a little bit sick in the head. We're all a little bit imbalanced there. We are all a little bit confused. And we're all starting to be a bit dissociated from real human emotions. We're starting to be more used to interact with robots than we are to interact with living, breathing things. We live in cities. We're not in contact with the flower that blooms and the tree that loses its leaves and the water that sings. Yes, Niala, you want to add something?
I want to ask, do you think that people who lived before us, like decades ago, were different than we are in this century, or might they be like us as well, or?
Personally, I do not believe in psychological evolution. I think if you picked up a very old Greek book or Roman book or Egyptian book, or even Aztec and Mayas, and think of any old civilization, you will see that people are worried about being happy, having pleasure, having enough to eat, caring for their kids, working. For as long as humanity has had documents out there, it's been worrying about the same thing, as far as I'm concerned. It's just that what has evolved is our technology. We are able to do different things now, to and on a different scale to solve our problems and our needs. But I think we're essentially the same human beings. And that is precisely why the teachings of the Buddha still apply. That the way that people suffered back then, we are still suffering. And therefore, this cake recipe still gives good cake today. So that's what I would say about this. Although there's a bit of a different shift, right? If you were born before the Second World War, obviously your priorities and your source of suffering would be quite different than if you were born after it, or if you were born during the Crusades, or during Enlightenment, where all that great art was being born and there were revolutions and cool things happening all around. So it's the same tool, it's the same universal humanity, but applied to different eras and different problems. That's what I think about it. Anyone else before we do our little?
Yeah,
Julia?
I wanted to say something. In the reading, there was something that struck me because it talks about mind control, like if Buddhism was about mind control, and I don't like that because when you try to control something, it's like I don't know. I see that kind of violent. Instead, I would say mind befriending. The moment that you are friend with your mind, then you can work with it and maybe use even those afflictions or afflictive thoughts, you can use them in your way to development or to enlightenment, could you?
Right. I thought I had mentioned that a couple of times earlier. Maybe you're far a bit, maybe the sound didn't reach you. But I was saying that instead of mind control, we could use the expression mind monitoring. And so it's in the spirit of making the mind the friend and monitoring it like a little bird or a little flower, but something that we are there to care for. So we're just being a vigilante, making sure everything is all right in its environment. And when we see that there's a problem, then the solution will arise from the correct. Just like if the bird has nothing to eat, we will give it to him, or the flower needs water. So yeah, mind control is over the top. Me, it's a bad translation. You are right, Magdalena. Maybe one more? Nope. Yes? Okay. So I feel that we will apply the same instructions that I gave first so that we all get an opportunity to practice. But now let's practice it silently. So here are the main steps. First of all, we relax, we settle down, make sure you have good posture and everything. After that, take a few deep breaths, relax, and then anchor your mind to the breathing process. When you wander away, that's the important part of the shamatha meditation. I like repeating that often. What we're flexing in meditation is the ability to find back our peace. So we are building a new sense where we notice what's going on in our mind, in our body, and in our feelings. And we are developing that muscle that allows us to just snap out of it and come back to something peaceful, just like our breath. So the important part is that recognition, where you have that little flash of, oh, I am lost in thoughts. When you have that, that's the muscle flexing. And then you bring yourself back. And as many times, even if you had a completely chaotic meditation, when you're lost in thoughts every 3 seconds, and every 3 seconds you recognize that you're lost in thoughts, well, actually, it's a better meditation because you're flexing more, right? So value this event of you noticing that you have wandered away, bringing back, because that's the use part that you can take with you. All right, so Breathe down, relax, bring the mind back to the breath. Let's do that until... We'll hear a little bell, and after the 10 minutes it will ring again. Alright, so first of all, let's take a deep breath. Let's make it 3 actually, so let's breathe deeply a few times. So it might be the end of the day for you. Maybe you've worked. So right now is the time to disconnect from your daily routine. Leave it behind. And just start scanning your body from the top of your head, going down. And as you scan your body and go down, just release any tension that you may notice. Relax every muscle. So from the tip of the head to the eyebrows, let us relax. And then around the eyes themselves, let us relax our eyelids, eye sockets, the muscles of our cheeks. And let's scan and reach behind the head as well, around the ears. Maybe some tension, let's release all of that. And then with your attention, focus on the back of your head, in the upper neck. And that makes sure your head is straight, your neck is straight. Relax the muscles of your jaw. Don't clench your teeth together, just let them... You can have your mouth open a little bit. Your lips touching. Tongue can rest at in the upper palate. Then release the tension in your shoulders. Upper back. Let your arms lay softly in your laps. Not too far from your body, just comfortably. If you're doing it right, your chest shouldn't be hard, it should remain soft. And then make sure your spine is well aligned with your neck. Might help to rock back and forth a little bit like that, so that you find your axis naturally. And then you can do it sideways as well. And where you end up, that's the center. back, base in your legs, and your feet. Make sure that your legs are providing a good platform for the rest of your body. That's the goal, that they just support you well, and that you feel no pain, no tension, no problem. Make sure your hands and your fingers are relaxed. Same with your toes. And then bring your attention to the breath. The practice of shamatha is to attach the attention to an object, in this case our breath. And that whenever the mind wanders away from that object, we simply and gently bring it back. So that practice is our mental discipline, our focus. But it also makes us conscious of what's going on in our mind and in our heart. So as you breathe in and breathe out, simply attach the mind to the process. And if you see that your mind is wandering, if you start thinking, for example, simply label the thought, let it go, and bring back the mind to your breath. If you feel a hitch, try and resist the urge of scratching it. Just observe it until it fades away. Then bring back the mind to the breath.
Hey, how you doing?
And so on.
Hey. I don't know what the hell's going on up there, but I had to mute the bastard out of fear. I had to mute the bastard doing the whole thing out of fear. Because of, a fear that I have ever since I was a child. Well, ever since my childhood. Let me just...
Let's respawn. Respawn. I'll see till spawn.
So whenever something unexpected happens like that in meditation, you can use it in your meditation. So you can listen to what's going on, and then you can bring back your mind to the breath. The idea is that you are the master of your peace, and you can go back to your peace at will. So you won't be shaken by anything that happens. That is precisely the muscle that we are building here. If you are new to shamatha meditation, it may help to count the breath. For example, whenever you expire, you can count 1 and 2 and 3. In my experience, 10 minutes of meditation is about 200 breaths. So it gives you an idea of time scale as well. All right. So that was our first 10 minutes. I hope it helps you disconnect a little bit. And I guess we'll move on to our reading. So Julia, I think you were prepared to read for us today. Mar likes to do it, but he will arrive late, he said today, so you want to help with
Shall I
this,
read from
great.
here?
Oh sure, since it's a bunch of little bits, you can do it from there, yeah.
So number 10.
Yep.
Once upon a time, a man was traveling alone. He came to a vacant house toward the evening and decided to spend the night there. About midnight, a demon brought in a corpse and left it on the floor. Shortly, another demon appeared and claimed the corpse as his, and they quarreled over it. Then, the first demon said it was useless to argue about it further and proposed that they refer it to a judge to decide the possessor. The other demon agreed to this, and seeing the man cowering in the corner, asked him to decide the ownership. The man was terribly frightened, for he well knew that whatever decision he might make would anger the demon that lost, and that the losing demon would seek revenge and kill him. But he decided to tell truthfully just what he had witnessed. As he expected, this angered the second demon, who grabbed one of the man's arms and tore it off. But the first demon replaced the arm with one taken from the corpse. The angry demon tore away the man's other arm, but the first demon immediately replaced that with the other arm of the corpse. And so it went on until both arms, both legs, the head and the body had been successively torn away and replaced with the corresponding parts of the corpse. Then the two demons, seeing the parts of the man scattered about on the floor, picked them up and devoured them and went away chuckling. The poor man, who had taken refuge in the deserted house, was very much upset by his misfortunes. The parts of his body which the demons had eaten were the parts his parents had given him, and the parts that he now had belonged to the corpse. Who was he anyway? Realizing all the facts, he was unable to figure it out, and becoming crazy, he wandered out of the house. Coming to a temple, he went in and told his troubles to the monks. People could see the true meaning of selflessness in his story.
All right, thank you. I like this story very much myself. What do you guys make of it? What do you get from this story, guys?
Bit confusing. Either for me.
All right, yeah, it's exotic to say the least. Yes, man.
So the guy was pondering about who he really was, right? So his whole body has been replaced, but he was still there, and I think still the same. So maybe he was body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a way, this entire story is about comparing the body to a corpse and wondering if the body is not the self, then what is the self? It is a teaching about the self and selflessness, which are central concepts. It's the know thyself of the Greeks, right? But in Buddhism, knowing the self is extremely important as well. There's a variation of that story where a guy decides to renovate a boat. He owns a boat and the boat is in a bad shape, so he decides to go plank by plank and kind of reduce every part of the boat, so much so that in the end there's nothing left from the original boat. And the question is, well, you know, it looks the same, it has, you know, pretty much the same soul. Is it a new boat or is it the same boat at that point when everything has been replaced? So if you're talking just about the physical properties of the boat, obviously it's a new thing, right? It's all made of new material. But it's also some kind of a restoration. So you could say that the original self is still there.
The original blueprint.
Yeah, and in fact in the story they refer to the parts that were given by his parents, and he's sad because he doesn't have those parts anymore. But let's just think about our development and how actually we learn from our parent. We learn who we are from our parent. We learn who we are from school. We learn who we are from society. But does it mean that we need to stay that all of our lives? If, you know, if I've been that cool kid that always obeys every adult, do I need to remain that docile all my life, or could I reinvent myself? If I have associated myself with a city, or if I was born in a patriotic family, does it mean I can never live my country, or could I embrace another country patriotically as well, or feel that my home is over there? So in a way, in life we change, and in many occasions we can change completely, leaving nothing of the old self to be seen. In fact, that's probably the best way to change. That's probably the best way to embrace the world, to become something dynamic, to become something new, to become something that cannot be defined, cannot be static. And there is that effect that is seen in the story as well, as the guy is making his case. They're stealing one body part after another and replacing it with something else. And in the end, the guy wonders, well, I have lost everything that defined me, so now who am I? Now, can we accept to be defined by nothingness? Is it a possibility that we don't need to carve who we are in stone? It's super counterintuitive, and I'd say even more in the West, because, you know, it is said that a man should have a kid, plant a tree, and write a book. A lot of our lives, we are made to believe, are about leaving a trace, about having testimonials that we have lived and that we did something significant, that we built an empire, or that we at least built that house, or anything that we feel is more permanent than we are. But what if the right way to live was actually the contrary? What if it was better to leave no trace because we lived so harmoniously with everything? What if a strong identity was a source of resistance and conflict instead of being a source of fluidity and harmony? that's what selflessness is about. When you reach effortless effort, when you reach Wu Wei, when you reach harmony, then your identity becomes the identity of the universe. You become one with everything. And isn't that the most beautiful identity you could get for yourself? To be the universe in motion. To be the dance itself and not the dancer. So this is what this story refers to. You have any commentaries on this or questions?
I would like to say something about that, the comment about the parents you said before. So I write a dream diary actually, and over the last few years I had dreams where like some roles, or my parents took some roles, or it always, for example, plays the dream, whatever happens, for example, in my childhood room, for example, where I grew up or something like that. And I had a dream where a saint was visiting me, and I was so happy that he was there actually. And then he started to sing and to dance, and he started to stomp with his feet on the ground. And then I was totally happy. And then I got fear, I felt fear, and I said to him, please don't wake my parents. And he said, why? I haven't even clapped with my hands yet. And yeah, I guess that our parents are influencing, are even in my life a huge influence. And also like from the way I grew up, I also am a little bit in conflict because of the religious perspective. For example, they are Jehovah's Witnesses, and they are very righteous and restricted to the idea of what God is, or what how to live a life, for example. And this is also like an ongoing thing in my life actually, to let go probably of some of the things which I already did of the past, but also like moving on and establishing a different relationship with my parents, so that I don't need their acceptance or approval, for example, for what I do or what I feel is right.
Right, so there is well, I don't know if I'm going to interpret that just right, Salgo, but this is what your bit inspires me there. We get a tremendous sense of pride out of our classical identity. For example, if as a kid I was coached to become a good sportsman and I won a lot of trophies, I might think of myself as the #1 in football or #1 in hockey or whatever it is that I practice, and that might be a big part of my identity. Or I might just think of myself as a good person. But the tragedy happens when the good person has to do something bad, and inevitably that happens in life. Or when the super sports player loses a game or a couple of games or a tournament, then this fragile identity that was created for ourselves becomes hurt and bent out of shape. And that's when basically depressions happen. When the lie you've been telling yourself about yourself does not agree with your life circumstances, then you start feeling that something is amiss, and you feel let down by the entire world, and you might feel that you are letting yourself down as well. So these things are very difficult to deal with when you start having self-identity issues like that. And with our parents, I'd say a lot of expectations come from them. A lot of the role that we think we are playing on this earth, at least for the very early years of our lives, are defined by them. You know, they expect us not only to be good sons and daughters, but they expect us maybe to succeed in life and to find a mate that will satisfy them, and to even, and I don't know, if it was my father, he might expect me to drive a certain type of car, or to do a certain kind of job as well. Parents have those expectations, and yes, they go into religion as well. Because the reason they choose those religions or those houses or those cars is because for them, they represent, I guess, a life well lived. They represent success. They are icons of what a great person should do. And so they project that onto others, thinking that if you are not walking this way, then you have not found the way. And it requires a lot of flexibility, understanding, and it requires us to be detached from any kind of identity, to be able to welcome all of that and work with it, especially when it's passionate matters such as politics or religions or even family values. What is a value if not a very deeply, almost irrationally held belief that you're willing to fight for, you know? So values are things that people are willing to defend. And I think wisdom is all about flexibility there. And it would be nice if everybody was wise, but I guess since everybody is not, it kind of falls onto us to have better and more harmonious relationship with the world. So you saying that you want to redefine your relationship with your parent and kind of accommodate them and accommodate what might be perceived as limitations right now, is kind of the right way to go at it. Like, do not judge, just welcome them. Create the space for them to be the way that they are, for as long as they need to be that, and they should feel all right around you. And on the contrary, let us be able to be something undefinable, no matter how much space is left for us. Even in prison, you can be free if you don't have this idea that you need to be outside. So,
yeah.
All right. So let's move on to the next story, maybe?
Once, a beautiful and well-dressed woman visited a house. The master of the house asked her who she was, and she replied that she was the goddess of wealth. The master of the house was delighted, and so treated her nicely. Soon after, another woman appeared who was ugly-looking and poorly dressed. The master asked who she was, and the woman replied that she was the goddess of poverty. The master was frightened and tried to drive her out of the house, but the woman refused to depart, saying, "The goddess of wealth is my sister. There is an agreement between us that we are never to live separately. If you chase me out, she is to go with me." Sure enough, as soon as the ugly woman went out, the other woman disappeared. Birth goes with death. Fortune goes with misfortune. Bad things follow good things. Men should realize this. Foolish people dread misfortune and strive after good fortune. But those who seek enlightenment must transcend both of them and be free of worldly attachments.
I think I'll go just straight to the point with this one. Life is not supposed to be painless. Life is not supposed to be pleasant. Life is a spectrum where we will experience all kinds of things, some of them painful, some of them pleasant. And so this is a teaching about non-duality and the fact that in everything there is a bit of everything else. When you think about what it requires to have a tree grow, you would see that in a tree there is not only a seed in earth and light in rain, but for the light to come you need a sun. For the sun to come you need a solar system. For the rain to be there you needed clouds. The clouds to be there you needed an atmosphere. And so basically in a tree you have a piece of the entire cosmos. Nothing exists of its own. Opposites do not exist. There is no such thing as evil and then good. It's on the spectrum always. So if you are thinking that you deserve a life that is all white or all black, you are equally mistaken. Both ways you are mistaken. Now, knowing that you will experience everything, how will you deal with it? How will you deal with the non-duality of life? How will you deal with the different degrees of pleasure and trauma that will be presented to you? How will you recover from them? It shouldn't come as a surprise that you will experience pain. But we all need to develop the skills not to make ourselves suffer further with our mind and by losing control of our mind or by losing control of our emotions. So I guess that's the little bit of wisdom to see there. We have a French storyteller here in Quebec called Fred Pellerin, and he tells those beautiful, very, I'd say almost hillbilly-like but poetic enlightened stories. And in one of his stories he talks about an apple tree that had two branches, and they were kind of split in the middle like that. And he said that on this apple tree, one of the branches was known to be poisonous, and so poison apples grew on that one. And on the other branch, he had the good apples. But then people had forgotten which branch was which, so nobody was touching the trees for like 100 years. And then one day a little girl, innocent, didn't know, and she came close to the apple tree and she got an apple and she bit into it. And people got really scared, but it was fine. She had taken the apple from the right side. And so knowing that, and so that no kid would ever get poisoned, they said, oh, now we know which branch is the wrong one. So they proceeded as a village to cut it. And so when they cut that part of the tree, what happened is that all the weight was on this side, and the tree crumbled and crashed into the ground. So there were no more good apples either. And he was using that as an image for non-duality, actually, in that story, saying that life always comes along with death. Good is always with evil, black with white, pain with pleasure. So let us just remember that as we go about our daily lives, and we will manage it better. Anybody wants to add something about this there? I'll add one more thing then. Since it was about riches and poverty, well, what happens if you become rich? What happens if you're hoarding resources? Right? If I'm asking you for real right now, if I am keeping, I don't know, $3 million under my mattress, what's happening in the world as a consequence?
Less money available for others, maybe? Less resources. Exactly. When resources are concentrated in one spot, then it leaves less resources for others. So as I am creating riches, I am also creating poverty. It's probably even easier to see if what I was hoarding was a natural resource. For example, like water, drinkable water. What if I owned most of the drinkable water in the world and I lived on a small island? Then a lot of people would die of thirst, I guess. So it's exactly the same with money. So the minute you are creating those riches, you are also digging into poverty. So we need to think of that in all of our actions. That's a very obvious example. But in everything that we do, there is some elitism. For example, if I decide to be a Jehovah's Witness, just to take or a Buddhist for that matter, just to take your example. Well, I have kind of defined myself as something, but I have also defined myself as not many other things. So I'm basically creating clans. I am into ism. Any word that finishes in ism, like Christianism, Buddhism, sexism, racism, name it. It always supposes that I'm dividing myself from the rest of humanity, and there is the seed of violence there. So what if I decide to go into Buddhism because I want to create goodness in the world?
Well, the very gesture of me becoming and defining myself as a Buddhist is actually dividing me from the rest of humanity and planting a seed for violence there. Right? So we need to find balance and equilibrium in everything. Don't be passionate about being a Buddhist. You can be passionate about the things that you learn and the progress that you make and the insights that you get. But don't go impose your beliefs to others. Don't try and recruit and convert them, because you will be creating evil as you do.
There's a quote from Rumi, which what I really like is, my religion is love and every heart is my temple. I think that's what it boils down to, so like accepting things. And
yes, and I do believe that whatever tradition you are from, that should be the most important teaching that you get from it. This is in every religion. But that's not what people focus on. They focus on the timeline and whether Jesus was black or brown and whether he had a beard or not and whether he was born on Christmas Day, and they pick up fights about that, which is ridiculous. You could do the same thing all day long with Siddhartha Gautama's story as well. That's not what Buddhism is for, right? Buddhism is for this, is for more love to be present in the world and for us to be aware of it. All right, so Julia, let's move on to the next one.
So 12. Once, there lived a poor artist who left his home, leaving his wife, to seek his fortune. After 3 years of hard struggles, he had saved 300 pieces of gold and decided to return to his home. On his way, he came to a great temple in which a grand ceremony of offering was in progress. He was greatly impressed by it and thought to himself, "Hitherto I have thought only of the present. I have never considered my future happiness. It is a part of my good fortune that I have come to this place. I must take advantage of it to plant seeds of merit." Thinking thus, he gratefully donated all his savings to the temple and returned to his home penniless. When he reached home, his wife reproached him for not bringing her some money for her support. The poor artist replied that he had earned some money, but had put it where it would be safe. When she pressed him to tell where he had hidden it, he confessed that he had given it to the monks at a certain temple. This made the wife angry, and she scolded her husband and finally carried the matter to the local judge. When the judge asked the artist for his defense, the artist said that he had not acted foolishly, for he had earned the money during long and hard struggles and wanted to use it as seed for future good fortune. When he came to the temple, it seemed to him that there was the field where he should plant his gold as a seed for good fortune. Then he added, "When I gave the monks the gold, it seemed that I was throwing away all greed and stinginess from my mind. And I have realized that real wealth is not gold, but mind." The judge praised the artist's spirit, and those who heard of this manifested their approval by helping him in various ways. Thus, the artist and his wife entered into permanent good fortune.
All right. So what does this story inspire you? Nothing? All right. Well, I hope it doesn't inspire you to give all of your money to your local temple. Not that you shouldn't do that, but that's not the point. It's strange how this links. Yesterday I was watching a movie, and all of a sudden I've had an insight, and I just wrote it on my Facebook page, you know. And the insight was the following. Every act of generosity is an act of courage. This is what I wrote on the page. And isn't it true? Well, it is true to me. Obviously, I wrote it. But, I mean, when you take something that you have, especially if you like it or if you've had it a long time or if it's something precious, isn't there like a type of fear associated with parting from that? There is attachment, right? And then you wonder what's going to happen when you detach from it. Is your life going to be less? Are you going to be less of a person because you don't have, I don't know, that fortune or that car or that special toaster, whatever that is, that you cherish, you know? And so it's easy to give what we don't need or what we have too much of. For example, if you have millions of dollars, to give $100 to somebody, it might look generous, but it's not actually very generous because you don't need it. Same thing, you know, if you have a basement full of bicycles and you are giving a couple a year to needy kids, well, that's great, but that's not very generous because there's no pain, there's no detachment there. So what we have in this story is a more extreme example where the person absolutely gives everything that they have. They worked all of their lives to make that money and they decide to go and give it. And it doesn't matter to whom. The important part of the process is that they were able to detach from everything that they owned all at once. And that's something that you find in all religions of the world also, right? Isn't it Jesus Christ that would say, abandon everything that you have, leave your family and follow me? It was like a prerequisite if you wanted to be a disciple there. You needed to renounce the world. In Buddhism, there is something called renunciation, which is almost a prerequisite for you to open your heart and make a transformation. But really the way that this works is that if you are able to deal with that level of detachment and you are able to do such an act of courage, such an act of generosity, then you are basically proving that you don't need much to be happy, that your happiness is not defined by outer circumstances. And so very little things, very little gifts will make you happy, or the company of someone will make you happy, or a bird, the sight of a bird might make you happy. So as you manage to detach yourself from the material world like this, you may find beauty all around. And that's where the real riches are about. So how could you not become luckier if you have done that type of detachment, if you were able to get yourself in that position where when you were happy with nothing, then everything else is a gain, right? Anything else that you get from there is on the way up, to the point that you can probably give back everything that you receive. Tibetan monks do that. When you offer a gift to them, to some exception, they usually receive it with one hand and give it almost immediately to somebody else. I've seen that happen with gold watches and jewelry and, you know, things also of lesser value, a bracelet or whatever. But the idea there is that there is this exchange happening, that I am grateful for what you bring me, and it makes the gesture that you brought to me makes me happy. But I am also practicing. I want to stay happy, therefore I want to remain generous. So I'd say this is what this little story is about. Questions or commentaries about that? Maybe a personal experience?
Maybe not about money, but actually doing something for others, it always comes back. Really beautiful in some way which you don't expect. Like if you send love, it comes back. So I would say whatever you do for someone else least worth doing, and you will reward it for that always.
Right. You shouldn't be doing it for that, but obviously, if you are spending a lot of your time helping others, then when you need help, you are very likely to find it, or you are likely to receive unexpected gifts all the time if you're giving them all the time as well. So it's just sowing seeds and they mature over time, certainly. All right, let's move on to the next one. Julia, please.
13.
Oh, come on.
A man living... Do you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, we had the people at the door. I was just inviting them to sit with us, if they want to. You can carry on. Thank you.
So, 13. A man living near a cemetery heard one night a voice calling him from a grave. He was too timid to investigate it himself, but the next day he mentioned it to a brave friend, who made up his mind to trace the place whence the voice came the following night. While the timid man was trembling with fear, his friend went to the cemetery, and sure enough, the same voice was heard coming from a grave. The friend asked who it was and what it wanted. The voice from under the ground replied, "I am a hidden treasure that has decided to give myself to someone. I offered it to a man last night, but he was too timid to come after it. So I will give it to you, who are worthy of it. Tomorrow morning I will come to your house with my 7 followers." The friend said, "I will be waiting for you, but please tell me, how am I to treat you?" The voice replied, "We will come in monks' robes. Have a room ready for us with water. Wash your body and clean the room, and have seats for us, and 8 bowls of rice porridge. After the meal, you are to lead us one by one into a closed room in which we will transform ourselves into crocks of gold." The next morning, this man washed his body and cleaned the room just as he had been told, and waited for the 8 monks to appear. In due time, they appeared, and he received them courteously. After they had eaten the food, he led them one by one into the closed room, where each monk turned himself into a crock full of gold. There was a very greedy man in the same village who learned of the incident and wanted the crocks of gold. He invited 8 monks to his house. After their meal, he led them into a closed room, but instead of turning themselves into crocks of gold, they became angry and rough and reported the greedy man to the police, who eventually arrested him. As for the timid man, when he heard that the voice from the grave had brought wealth to the brave man, he went to the house of the brave man and greedily demanded the gold, insisting that it was his because the voice first addressed him. When the timid man tried to take the crocks away, he found lots of snakes inside, raising their heads ready to attack him. The king heard about this and ruled that the crocks belonged to the brave man, and uttered the following observation: "Everything in the world goes like this. Foolish people are avaricious for good results only, but are too timid to go after them, and therefore are continually failing. They have neither faith nor courage to face the internal struggles of the mind, by which alone true peace and harmony can be attained."
All right, thank you. Somehow, for me, this is a story about creativity and innovation and daring. We see a lot of people with a lot of dreams and a lot of projects, but then they're taken by the thought that will never work, and so they're scared even to start. And you have this other guy there that's willing to dig in a graveyard, to succeed. And so there's a big contrast in there. But often when you're the first one also, when you start to be successful, people want to copy your ideas. But since they didn't go through the entire process, they probably don't have the secret sauce, the entire recipe. They just judge from external views. And so even if they were trying to copy you exactly, the chances are that it will turn badly for that reason. For me, this story is mainly about trusting in oneself and not being shaken. I spoke about the 4 states of mind in Zen in the prior meeting. So Fudoshin, the unshakable mind, the unshakable heart, you know. If you go at a life project or at a dream, you will be told all kinds of things from people close to you, from the market, from your loved ones. But if you allow that to shake you down, you will probably never get to the point where you can collect your treasure. So to me, it's a reminder, this story, to practice Fudoshin. Practice having a solid source of peace within ourselves to which we can always come back no matter what happens, and maintain our aspirations and resolve. And I guess the story there tells us that it pays in the long run to do that. Not only materially, but humanely. I've known people that are afraid to travel. For example, especially right now during the pandemic, people are even afraid to get out of their houses. But unfortunately, what kind of experience of the world will you get if you live in fear? And now it's kind of reasonable, you know, through the pandemic to take precautions. But let's imagine that it's over and you're simply afraid to leave your city or your state or your country, or you're afraid of other cultures. Aren't you missing a lot on life when you live like that? So it's not just about realizing your dreams, it's about not shying away from fear, you know? Courage is not to be fearless. Courage is to feel the fear, but you decide that you carry on. You can keep it kind of under control. Your peace is stronger than your fear, and that keeps you going. But to live courageously is something beautiful. It goes hand in hand with generosity that we have just covered, I guess. Anybody with a different take on the subject? You want to talk, AJ?
Sorry, no,
No?
I
Okay.
just put my hand in the air.
Oh yeah, alright. Anybody else? Or we move on to the... Oh yeah? Alright, Midlich?
Yeah, for me I think it's also about spiritual development, maybe. So those who put the work in and develop themselves, they gain the benefits of it. But those who are too timid to face themselves and whatever is out there in their reflection of their feelings, or they feel about things, they are the timid guys maybe and won't reap the benefits. And also those who try to steal like the spiritual development of others, this is also not possible. They will gain the snakes maybe then.
That's an interesting angle on it, and yes, it takes courage to look at yourself right in the eyes. Because obviously when we start looking at ourselves, we don't like everything that we see. We like some of it, and some of it we pretty much despise. But it's easy to look at only what we like and look at what we despise in others. That's what most of us tend to do. But that doesn't bring a lot of growth. Fearlessness is in many ways the result of a strong spiritual practice. Because as you learn to stand your ground in the face of fear, as you learn to look at yourself straight in the eyes, as you learn to do the things you have never done courageously, then you're I call that claiming back your territory. So the places where you can evolve wholesomely keeps on growing, and the territory that is given to fear is smaller and smaller. I like to think of that as those medieval cities, the burgs, you know, where they were walled cities. And back in those days, they had legends about dragons and two-headed lions and flying serpents and what have you. And I believe the reason for that is that people didn't wander too far. They were inside the walls, and that's what they knew, and everything outside could kill you. And so they made up all those myths and all of those stories there. So it's like you are building the walls farther and farther as you are facing your fears. And sooner than not, you find yourself in a large plain with lots of territory and lots of places where you can live in different ways you can live, because you have found a river, and you have found a forest, and you have found a mountain, and you have a city, and you have a fireplace, and you discover things as you go, and it enriches your life as well. So yeah, that's kind of the payback of facing yourself. Thank you for that, Midlish. Julia? Is it 14th now? I think you're on mute, or...
Yes, 13:59, so 14.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to read that?
We finished.
We read all the stories already.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I was good for another one. That's
I thought you were asking about the time. It's 14.
No,
yeah, the time is 14.
Yeah, but there were 14 stories as well, I think. All right. So I guess that was our session for today. Did anybody have an interesting insight or experience this week that they would like to share? Or should we go straight to meditation?
The wife left me thinking, because maybe she needed the money to feed their kids, and it was all given to the monks in the temple. And I think we must find a balance to have enough to survive, and then share what we have left, but not so that we starve, because we're generous.
Well, that goes back to the African story with the long spoons, you know, where everybody's feeding their camera in front. If we all practice sharing, then that's no problem at all. To me, I mean, if there was any problem feeding those kids, I'm sure you could take them back to the monastery and they would take care of feeding them after the fortune that they have received. In fact, that's what most families did in Tibet and around those monasteries. They would make a large donation, and that would ensure that the kids would receive an education and good food, while the parents sometimes kept on struggling. So it might not be a bad way to do it. Another thing is that if the monastery is not corrupt, obviously, its role is kind of to redistribute wealth. So if we're thinking about what we were saying earlier, that if I hoard $3 million in my mattress, I am basically creating inequality and I am making people poor. Well, if I take the 3 million and give it back to charity where it gets redistributed, in a way I am kind of resolving my karma there and rebalancing a little bit the imbalance I had created. So I'm not saying that this is the way to go, but you know, one thing that we do in the world that I think is foolish is that first I care for myself, and then I care for my family, and then I care for my relatives, and then I care for my friends, And then beyond my friends and colleagues, maybe my neighborhood and my country. But beyond the country, nobody gives a damn. It's so what that creates is that it creates me against you. Or like in Romeo and Juliet, my family against your family. Or like the gang wars, my neighborhood against your neighborhood. And then my city against your city, civil war. And then my country against your country, right? This idea that the people that are closest to us are the most precious people on earth. This idea that I'm going to take care of myself and of my family before I take care of others is in a big way what keeps the misery in this world. Because a lot of us, in the name of caring for our families, we are hoarding those millions and those resources and those gadgets. And meanwhile, many other families that should deserve it don't have it. So we have to be cautious there. Obviously, do not let a child starve. And I hope the guy in the story had a plan for that somehow, or he knew that they had a lot of rice, or they had chickens or something. He wasn't worried about it. So I hope he didn't let his kid starve. But we don't need more protecting ourselves. We don't need more thinking of ourselves first. We need to care for humanity as a whole, I'd say, especially in 2021. But that's an interesting take, though. Thank you, Julia. All right, so today, actually a few days ago, I learned that Bun Bun here, his father, fell sick with COVID, and they took him straight to the hospital, and he's been on and off oxygen. He's on oxygen right now. So I would like us to just wish a long, healthy life to Impalas, Bun Bun's parent. And if you guys would like to do a little visualization during your meditation, send some bright white light towards her father so that he feels better and recovers quickly. I would appreciate that. You can do it while following your breath and health as you exhale. So let's do another little 10-minute session. You know the drill now. Breathe deeply in the beginning. Relax your body, follow the breath, and then you can do the visualization. the mind wanders away, you can simply bring it back to your breath, into your visualization. So I guess that concludes today's session. How did you like it, new guys?
Very much, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I've never done this sort of sitting with other people, so it was quite a cool experience.
Alright. Well, you're welcome to join us back at any time. It's like that every Mondays. There's another session tonight, actually, for the people in I guess in America in compatible time zones. And there's another session on Wednesday also with Bhante Sati, who's an actual monk from Sri Lanka that lives in the state now. We do follow a curriculum here. He does not, but it's still very interesting, very nice to participate in those sessions. So please try it if you can. And I guess we're just going to do the dedication for today and disband the session. All rise, please.
For the benefit of beings without exception, I dedicate without any reticence whatsoever all the merit accrued through virtuous acts to the incomparable expanse of totality.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you, all of you. May you have a great week. And Banban, I do hope that your father will be doing better pretty soon. I'll be thinking of him. You also hang in there. Take care of yourself. All right. Thank you. Have a good